Hello my friends, welcome back to the den for another shave, which is brought to us by Saponificio Varesino Opuntia. Opuntia is a short for Opuntia ficus indica, which is a prickly pear. Wonderful fragrance. I've got it blooming here because today's history runs us a little long, I think. There's a lot of moving parts to this one. And this is by special request. This is going to take us back a little bit. We're going to go backwards. This is before our Revolutionary War stuff kind of really gets in big into. This goes even before like the famous Boston Tea Party. This takes us to Narragansett Bay in Rhode Island in 1772. 1772, you say, Rich? Boy, that's way before. Yes, it was. What happened in there? I even have little notes. There's so much happening, I had to take notes. Before we go, I'm using my Henson AL13 and my little 19 millimeter synthetic brush. And we're doing this thing, I'm actually lathering and doing all the stuff today because I'm just kind of making everything happen. Okay, the central characters of this, maybe the one that I'm most interested in, is this character, Captain William Duddingston. I think he was actually a lieutenant, but maybe a captain. I don't know how that works. I've seen it both ways. He was the captain of a ship called the dang it, what is that? Gaspee. And let's just kind of call this whole thing the Gaspee affair. So this Duddingston fella, the Gaspee was a customs ship, and its job was running down smugglers. Not in and itself, not a big sin, I guess, because at the time we were a British colony, and there is taxation that has to be paid on stuff, but people got to pay bills and stuff. What happened was, this Duddingston fella got a little big for his britches, and he started being a little bit more aggressive than he needed to be, chasing people down and doing stuff that he started bypassing court orders and things to do searches, and he seized stuff. And instead of trying, if you get arrested for smuggling in those days, you go to court, local court right there in Rhode Island. Rhode Island has a colony. They have an agreement. That's where the governor's gonna do stuff. And well, this Duddingston started removing goods from Rhode Island and sending it to Boston. And openly ignoring the orders of the governor of Rhode Island at the time. I don't have his name written down. So anyway, he was sowing seeds of discontent. He was really, people starting to get angry. Same kind of anger about, the British getting a little bit heavy-handed. We talked about that earlier, that they were kind of squeezing the colonies for revenue because England was at war pretty much all the time. So they were squeezing ships for revenues. So let's get to the main event. June 9th, 1772. And this is also something that if you happen to be, don't know the name of the town, but they celebrate this with a parade, and there's Gaspee days, and they have parades, and they even burn a little mock-up of the Gaspee. I'll put a picture. I found one picture. I'll put it right here. Burn a copy of the Gaspee in effigy. So what happened was, on the 9th, the Gaspee was on the sea, in the bay, chasing down a ship called the Hannah, a little, kind of a smaller ship, trying to run it down and pick up. They suspected it of running smuggled goods, and they likely were. But remember, all this, he made people mad at him. Well, anyway, in his haste to catch the Hannah, he ran the Gaspee aground in a little bit shallow water. Now, the fellows on shore there either saw it or they found out pretty quick about the Gaspee being aground and not trying to pull themselves off. You know, they had little boats that they could probably, you know, hook to the main ship and try to tow it off the shallows and kind of refloat it. Remember, this was also, we had another, our first, I can't think of it now, it was in the Boston area. Ship ran aground and we burned that one. Well, same thing happened here. Word got out, and a fellow named John Brown, yes, that John Brown, he organized a raid in the cover of darkness of that night, the 9th. They went out and they set fire to the ship. Well, actually, they boarded it first. A brief scuffle with the crew. Armed colonists, they board the Gaspee. There was a brief scuffle, some gunfire. Duddingston was shot, but not fatally. He got shot in the boys, in the groin. And he surrendered his ship. I don't know what happened much after that, but they burned it to the waterline. No one talked. You know, of course, there's going to be inquiries who did this, and yeah, even if you knew, you weren't going to say nothing, because not only were the British getting kind of heavy-handed, and if you knew anything and you ratted anybody out, you were either going to get in trouble with all your friends and all the guys who were actually involved, and the British were likely to still try you for destruction of the schooner and probably extradited somewhere where, probably taken back to England in irons and tried there, where you were likely to get hanged. All in all, not a good thing, and that's why it's important not to rat out your friends. So there was official inquiries. So they say down here, Well, why it mattered? Okay, it was an early act of open violence. It was even before the Boston Tea Party, about a year. It strengthened the colonial network. In other words, everybody knew that, yeah, we could do something like this, even if it's like underground, doing little acts of sabotage here and there. You're not going to give them any extra help if you didn't have to. And kind of added to the anger of everybody mad at the Brits for what no doubt was an overly aggressive investigation, chasing after old people who did that. So they like to think and say that the Gaspee affair, as it came to be called, was like the opening shots of the American Revolution. I'm not sure what I think about that. It was a little bit way before all that started, but it certainly is one of the first recorded big events that is kind of famous now. Put you aftershave. Thank you so much for asking me about this and asking me to say something about this event. That's very interesting. I missed a spot. I didn't know much about this incident until yesterday. It was very interesting to look into that. There's a lot more moving parts to it than I talked about here. So, you fire up your Googles, look up the Gaspee affair. It's an interesting little episode in our history, and I think you'll like it. If you have any other questions or comments, leave them in the comments down below. I'm Major Rich. You find me at theshavingconner.com. You might be finding me on my Safety Cat Studios YouTube channel. Please leave a like, subscribe if you're so inclined, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.